DateLine. Headline breaking news with Election Day snarkification. DateLine. Flashback. Back in 1982, the court case of the Democratic National Committee versus the Republican National Committee has opened and kept open the flood of voter fraud 32 years and counting.
Wow.
In that case, the DNC sued the RNC over imaginary voter suppression of minorities as the 44 states to 6 loss for the Democratic presidential contender 2 years earlier left the Democrats reeling and looking for ways to manufacture votes.
You disgust me.
In typical wishy-washy Republican style, the RNC agreed to a consent decree before a Democrat-appointed judge rather than fight these ludicrous claims.
It's incredible.
These claims were supposed voter intimidation of minorities in New Jersey.
Say what?
That's right, only New Jersey, a state, by the way, that was won by the Republican Ronald Reagan by over 13% in the previous election. So because of New Jersey and the Republicans' capitulation in this nuisance case, to this day, over 3 decades later, the Republicans are legally barred from fighting voter fraud in areas where there are major minority communities.
Oh my God!
The judge, Democrat Dickinson de Beauvoir, appointed by Jimmy Carter, later retired but decided he would continue to control the case even up until today, so he and only he can renew the restrictions on the GOP from challenging obvious voter fraud in minority communities.
Hard to comprehend, but that's true.
So now we know how Barack Obama in the 2012 election stole states like Pennsylvania and Ohio, just to name a few. This is how he received 100% of the votes in the inner city precincts across the country, like Cincinnati and Philadelphia, with 0 votes going to Mitt Romney.
Well, I would say, first of all, that now clearly President Obama broke our laws, and that cannot be ignored or brushed aside.
Even when Saddam Hussein was the only candidate for president on the ballot back in 2002, he received only 97% of the vote.
That's a fact, Jack!
But our beloved dictator got 100%?
Okay.
That is why, even with Republican poll watchers seeing with their own eyes in places like Allentown, Pennsylvania, defaulting to Obama no matter who was chosen by the voter, the GOP could not fight these blatant acts of despicable voter fraud because of the moronic decision by the RNC back in 1982.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
So when we say actions here, today, may have consequences down the road, take it to heart.
That's the fact, Jack! That's a fact, Jack!
DateLine. New York and New Jersey.
I want to be a part of it. New York, New York.
See how we did that? Sinatra sang about New York, but he was born in New Jersey.
Anyone?
Okay, don't be so touchy.
Get to the point.
As we stated 2 weeks ago here on DateLine, the Obama administration continues its optic campaign in fighting the Ebola outbreak. For the press. The real health crisis with the Ebola outbreak in the U.S., not so much.
Oh, no.
As more and more sane nations put temporary flight bans from the infected countries, the United States still refuses to, while putting up the most lame and ridiculous reasoning behind this dangerous decision. Let's take the African country of Senegal, for example, right in the middle of the region hardest hit by this killer virus. They were one of the first countries to stop flights from the affected countries back in August, and just last week, the World Health Organization declared Senegal Ebola-free. If you follow this administration's logic, and the liberal left's logic, The only reason that Senegal cut off travel between it and the affected countries was, well, you know. So with some sense of loyalty to its own citizens, the New York and New Jersey governors, one Democrat and one Republican, have tried to implement their own quarantine protocols, but were forced to back down as the thuggish administration blackmailed them by threatening to pull their federal funds across the board.
Shame on you.
New York and New Jersey, who are at the entry point of the U.S. for people from these infected countries, as the federal government are still sticking to the plan of not refusing people who might be infected into the country.
Mr. President, this is ridiculous. There is no plan.
Obama and CDC Director Frieden claim that if we ban flights from the infected countries to the U.S., that they will find another way to get out of those countries and make it to the U.S. anyway. What? My question to the administration is this. If the countries of Zambia, Kenya, South Africa, Gabon, Rwanda, Senegal, Ivory Coast, Seychelles, Guyana, Haiti, Mauritius, Colombia, St. Kitts and Nevis, Jamaica,
Hey, you want to get high, man?
Antigua and Barbuda, Belize, the Dominican Republic, Suriname, St. Lucie, North Korea, Capo Verde, Equatorial Guinea, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as well as major airlines like British Airways, have closed all travel from the infected countries. How can these affected people make it to the U.S. when all the countries surrounding the affected areas are closed? Please, can someone explain this to me?
It's magic!
It's like the administration lives on Fantasy Island. DateLine, Washington, D.C.
This town needs an enema.
As Barack Obama sees his last 2 years as a lame duck coming straight down the pike, he enjoyed another bad week on the political landscape. Not only, as we documented here on DateLine, are the Democrats running from him like he has Ebola, where some Democrat candidates have called him irrelevant, other Democratic candidates have started off their television ads with,
I'm not Barack Obama.
Not only do they flee the state once they see Air Force One coming over the horizon, but last week he went to Maryland to save a Democrat candidate running for governor in one of the bluest of blue states, Maryland, to try to save his floundering poll numbers.
Okay.
After Democrat Anthony Brown, running for governor in Maryland, dropped like a stone, losing a 15-point advantage in 3 weeks, President Obama campaigned on the stage with Brown, only to see a few days later Brown's poll numbers drop 9 straight points because of the Barack Obama curse.
It's a disturbing pattern.
Now, as the midterm elections are just a few hours away, there's one thing that the American people can do to help President Obama set another record. President Obama is not only the proud record holder of the first president to go 8 years without passing his own budget, but in the budget process in 2012, his fiscal year 2013 budget lost a record 513-0 after the 2 chambers voted on his fiscally repugnant budget.
Oh my God.
And he's also set the record for 9 unanimous Supreme Court rebukes.
Oh my God!
No president has ever been bitch-slapped that hard, that many times, so many times unanimously, than Barack Obama.
Come on, what's the matter with you?
But we can give him one last record before sending him off to lame duck land. He lost 63 House seats in the 2010 midterm elections. And he has a slight chance of setting a new record, a dubious one at that, of course, the only ones he seems to achieve, if he loses another 21 House seats.
Wow, wow, wow.
If he loses another 21 House seats tomorrow, he will have lost the most House seats of an 8-year president in the history of the United States, beating out fellow Democrat loser Harry Truman.
That's a fact, Jack!
This is a record I think all of us want to give President Obama as a going-away present.
Aloha, aloha.
DateLine, Los Angeles.
I love LA.
As we reported 2 weeks ago here on DateLine, the guerrilla street artist known as Sabo spread posters all over the affluent LA suburb of Brentwood where Hillary Clinton was to appear at a Hollywood elite fundraiser. He plastered images of the flying monkey from The Wizard of Oz holding a Hillary 2016 poster.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
Well, whether it was for that, or his posters ridiculing Obama drone Gwyneth Paltrow, or dingbat Nancy Pelosi.
I don't know what was so great about the Depression, but that's the name they give it.
DateLine is not sure, but something he did warranted a visit from the Secret Service.
Yeah, baby!
That's right. The prostitution-loving.
How does that feel, baby?
Lower.
How does that feel, baby?
White House fence jumper missing, Secret Service went to see Sabo, an artist. A conservative artist exercising his First Amendment right to free speech.
Say what?
And in true Secret Service fashion, they missed him. Sabo was out of the house.
Don't!
So they left their calling card on the door.
Say what?
Hey kid, I don't make this stuff up.
Okay.
They left what looked like a Do Not Disturb sign around the handle of Sabo's door that said, Agent Donald Johnson of the United States Secret Service tried to contact you regarding possible ID theft. And ended it with a please call, thank you. Now, not only does the Secret Service not put the real reason on the calling card, since when did the Secret Service of the United States investigate possible ID theft?
I don't believe that.
Unless it was the ID of a Colombian streetwalker.
Oh, no, come on now, baby.
As usual, people, constitutional rights only protect those on the left and are somehow disregarded if you are on the right and dare speak out against this administration.
A message is being sent through the White House. If you oppose this administration, there can and will be ramifications.
Glorious will be the day that this thug administration is kicked to the curb by an ever-awakening and fed-up American people who are sick and tired of getting their rights trampled on because of their political views. Let's close this section of DateLine with Sabo's own words as he tweeted out after they attempted to quiet this great patriot. Sabo wrote, quote, "If you are on Twitter and have a political opinion that is not leftist, be scared. Be very scared. Obama's Secret Service is watching." DateLine, Book of the Month Club.
Hello, good readers. I am so delighted to tell you about my latest book club pick.
A new segment of DateLine. Here we suggest a newly released book for liberals as well as conservatives to read to open their eyes as to what's happening to our country.
Oh my God.
In Cheryl Atkinson's memoir/expose, Stonewalled, My Fight for Truth Against the Forces of Obstruction, Intimidation, and Harassment in Obama's Washington, she documents not only the chill wind of intimidation.
A chill wind is blowing in this nation. A message is being sent through the White House. If you oppose this administration, there can and will be ramifications.
but the biased liberal media that is still protecting the worst president since World War II, Barack Obama.
Shame on you.
As the White House intelligentsia is just parroting the administration's talking points on the plethora of scandals when they're talking to reporters, they not only intimidate reporters that won't toe the Democrat Party line, but they try to paint the reporter, like Atkinson, who was actually trying to do her job as an investigative reporter, and they paint her as unreasonable.
It's a disturbing pattern.
While trying to get the facts.
That's the fact, Jack!
Yeah, those facts. While trying to get the facts in the cover-up of the Benghazi fiasco, White House National Security spokesman Tommy Vietor replied, quote, "I give up, Cheryl. I'll work with more reasonable folks that follow up, I guess," unquote. And when she was trying to get to the bottom of the Fast and Furious scandal that cost lives of hundreds of people on both sides of the Mexican-American border, as Obama and Holder sent over 3,500 weapons to the Sinaloa Mexican drug cartel, Eric Schultz, another White House stooge, didn't like being pressed by the reporter from the Obama network, otherwise known as CBS, and shouted, quote, "God damn it, Cheryl. The Washington Post is reasonable. The LA Times is reasonable. The New York Times is reasonable. You're the only one who's not reasonable," unquote.
A message is being sent through the White House.
So the White House calls reporters that carry their water and are stenographers for all this administration's lies as reasonable. May I suggest to this lawless administration that it is reasonable for your officials that were behind the IRS targeting, Fast and Furious bloodbath, as well as the other scandals like Solyndra kickbacks and the leaving behind of 4 individuals to die in Benghazi, to get prosecuted for their high crimes and misdemeanors. And for the mainstream media that thinks it's reasonable to skew the news just to protect a president and a party that you are ideologically shackled to, you'll find that the American people believe it's reasonable to stop watching your insipidly, morally corrupt news shows, and then we all can reasonably watch your ratings tank, as they have been doing for some time. DateLine, Washington, D.C., redo.
This town needs an enema.
As the disgraced Attorney General Eric Holder tries to slink out of town before being confined to a 6-by-8-foot cell, his replacement is becoming more and more difficult to find, as Holder will most certainly be charged with civil indictments from the Fast and Furious scandal that a judge recently pulled the lid off documents he was trying to hide.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
And the IRS targeting that he has orchestrated a cover-up, as well as burying the Solyndra evidence down a Department of Injustice rabbit hole. The criminal charges just might fall on the new AG.
Say what?
As we reported earlier, the criminal conduct from Holder will be attached to the position of Attorney General in a criminal complaint.
Say it ain't so.
Making the search for a new AG difficult, as nobody wants to follow the only cabinet member in the history of the United States to be held in contempt of Congress, as they might get engulfed in Holder's slime.
He slimed me.
Former White House counsel Catherine Rumler has reportedly turned down President Obama's offer to replace Holder, and who can blame her? She herself is knee-deep in the slime of the DOJ as well as the White House and their avalanche of scandals. She was not looking forward to answering for her parts she played in the IRS, NSA, Fast and Furious, Benghazi, Solyndra, and many other scandals that could prove embarrassing to her as well as the president, especially if the Republicans take control of the Senate.
Dynamite!
Another name on a long list of possibles as a replacement as Attorney General is the former head of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano. Scary, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Although I can't imagine why she would want to open herself up to questions during her hearing about how she allowed the domestic bomb prevention budget to be cut in half of what it was under Bush, that logically led to a domestic bomb attack in Boston in 2013. the first terrorist attack on U.S. soil since 9/11 under her watch.
Oh my God!
So, not only does the new Attorney General have to carry Holder's criminal baggage, but if it's someone who has already served in this Cosa Nostra administration, they have their own baggage that could quickly turn into cement shoes, sinking their nomination. May I suggest, to save this country from any more embarrassment after 8 years of disgraceful conduct from the executive and the Department of Justice branches, may I suggest the President nominates Judge Jeanine Pirro as the next AG. At least she has the proper answer when, like he did with Holder, if he asks her to cover up his next scandal.
Shame on you, Mr. President.
DateLine. Bitch slap of the week. What some might call the most satisfying part of DateLine is here.
Dynamite!
This is where we administer instant justice. No media disinformation, no liberal spin, facts presented, and retribution given. Now, there were so many people vying for the last bitch slap before the midterm elections, it was a tough decision. We had our staff working overtime scouring public figures that have acted so ridiculous or irresponsible that they need to be slapped back into check.
Come on, what's the matter with you?
One of our staff wanted to backhand the nurse from Maine, Casey Hickok.
What's the idea?
Arrogantly traipsing around the Northeast after spending time around Ebola-stricken patients in Africa, then refusing to self-quarantine even though the virus can incubate from 21 days and in some cases up to 48 days. I thought of abusing President Obama once again for his race baiting on the Al Sharpton show.
Come on, what's the matter with you?
Or his handling of the Ebola crisis. But as most of America realizes, as well as fellow Democrats who treat him like Ebola, Obama has become nothing but a bad punchline to a not-so-funny joke. Another staffer wanted to smack the head of the Senate Majority Political Action Committee.
What's this? A fist.
For running despicable ads playing the race card by using the dead body of Trayvon Martin, who was shot in Florida, just to gin up the black vote in North Carolina.
You disgust me.
I know, right?
Right.
They definitely deserve a smack or two. Of course, that leads us to who really deserves the bitch slap of the week. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. Not only has he been behind most of the despicable moves in these last days before the election, as his party is tanking from his stewardship of the Senate over the last 8 years, as well as President Obama's disastrous 6 years.
Yes.
But he has single-handedly brought about the most impotent Senate, legislation-wise, of any in the history of the United States. While America is still reeling from the Democrats' Great Recession of 2008, Harry Reid has stopped most attempts by the House of Representatives to get the country back on track.
Shame on you.
Reid, the most obstructionist Senate leader ever, has over 352 bills sitting on his desk that he has personally vetoed, a power that used to belong only to the President of the United States.
Come on, what's the matter with you?
Of those 352 bills, 98% of them had support by Democrats in the House.
Wow.
50% of those passed the House unanimously with no objections.
Wow.
Of the 352 bills Reid decided to bury, 70% passed with over 2/3 majority.
Wow.
And of those 352 bills, 55 were actually introduced by House Democrats, and Reid still refused to bring them up for votes in the Senate, even though he has a huge 55 to 45 Democrat majority.
What's the idea?
If these bills were so bad and would not help the American people, he could have just brought them up for a vote and vote them all down and use that as talking points for this election, that the Republican House is passing horrible bills. But it's obvious that these bills would help the American people, and that is the only reason why he has taken the unilateral decision to kill them. Harry Reid's motto is, party over people, politics over country.
Quiet.
While it's all fun and games bitch-slapping slimy Harry Reid around, the sad truth is that the Republicans must take the Senate and rid the upper chamber of the cancer that has infected the legislative process for the past 8 years.
Amen, brother. Amen.
And that's DateLine for this day, November 3rd, 2014.